Before we go on to tonight's topic, is any more questions from the practice from today?
I have two questions. First of all, in some of the sessions, I felt like when I observe my thoughts and I can see my reactions and I can still see like the sense, the awareness.
Yeah.
I start to choose the content, like control.
To change things?
Yeah. And my question is if that's all right, if it's part of the practice, or should I just let whatever comes?
Yeah. Okay. Of course, in general, in our life, if we have the ability to control something, we try to control it. In this practice, of course, we're not trying to control anything. We're just simply observing whatever's arising. That's all. So, so I would sort of resist the temptation. I mean, if you notice that, then just observe the wanting to control. Just observe that wish to control.
And the second question is, I think sometimes I get confused between introspection and interpretation.
Interpretation.
Yeah, like okay, now you're in the right direction. Now you're not, and then like it becomes the introspection becomes thoughts.
Right. So the question is that introspection is becoming like commentary.
Yeah.
Right. I think I've mentioned once or twice briefly is that as a beginner, some little bit of commentary is helpful and even sometimes necessary to remind us of what to do. So otherwise, we hear the instructions and then we have to apply the instructions, but because this is some new thing we're doing, we have to sort of keep reminding us of what to do, what not to do, and so forth. So you'll find that as a beginner, there will be a little bit of commentary about, okay, now I need to check this, now I want to look after the body, I need to do this. So again, as a beginner, you'll find that a little bit of commentary is probably necessary, but keep it minimal. Don't make it some elaborate story, because then it really just becomes another distraction. So with that commentary, there's like cost-benefit. It's a bit like, it's a similar idea when you're focusing on the breath. Counting is extra activity that could be useful in the beginning phases to help you stay on track, but eventually it'll become a problem. So similarly with this, a little bit of commentary to remind us what to do occasionally, not every few seconds, do this, then it's too much. But occasionally a little bit of commentary as a beginner to remind us what to do is going to be helpful, but then slowly over time, we don't need to keep doing that, and then it just becomes an automatic thing. So just be a bit mindful that we're not doing that excessively, and only when we sort of need to remind ourselves. And yeah.
And if we are doing it excessively?
If you're doing it excessively, then just let it go. Just let it go. Just understand that then it becomes a distraction, and it's like anything else. Just let it go, and go back to the object. And that's enough. Yeah.
Today I had sort of a mid-retreat crisis.
Mid-retreat crisis, like a midlife crisis. Usually these are, they're gone. No, usually these are actually very helpful, or often can be very helpful.
Yeah, it's on the way of becoming them.
You're still in the crisis. After the crisis, then it was good.
No, I feel better now. Actually,
good.
The thing is, like at the morning session, I couldn't hear anymore the instruction. I just couldn't be here. I was sick of it.
Sure.
And it felt like trying to fall asleep when you have to sleep because you have to wake up early. And there was so much pressure, like you said. and there really subtle pressure, because it's like it's a good thing and we breathe and we're silent, but there's so much pressure to make it. Like,
Well, that's our modern society.
yeah,
You know, where we have to achieve.
yeah.
We want it and we want it now. Let's do it now. Shamatha or bust.
So now it's better. It was actually all through the retreat.
Sure, sure.
I can tell that when I started, I counted the days. I was
Sure.
okay, we have 9 more days to be better. And, yeah, day 9. And now and today was the day where it like shifted. Like
Yeah.
this part was stronger, and the part that said like, no more. Like what's going on? Where is it going? And no, it's like. I'm still processing it, but
Sure.
a few things, the positive things that happened.
Yeah,
In one of the intervals of the 30 minutes
sure.
meditation, I went to the bathroom and I said, okay, just let it go. Just this time, just you don't mind the instructions. Don't look for the awareness. Don't do that. And I came like my attitude was what the heck. And it was bad.
I need that.
I just stared at space, and it was just a little bit better. I wasn't even trying actually.
Huh.
I was just breathing. That was nice. And also, what seemed to be good was the somewhat like balancing effect of practicing compassion, because it sort of gave like a taste of why am I doing
Why am I doing it? Exactly.
It was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what we
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
And it's really meaningful, it's really
Yeah.
powerful.
yeah.
And of course also the yoga really helped.
Sure,
All
sure,
these
absolutely.
things,
Yeah.
help, and
Yeah, so an integrated approach is always the best.
yeah, it really helped. The morning was really like robust, like a lot of practicing. It was
Sure,
intense
Sure.
for me.
sure.
And that's it. It's
But-
better now.
Yeah, so, and I think that goes on to, like you said, the point earlier, is that, you know, in our modern society we have this sort of striving attitude, you know, we need to achieve, we need to
Yeah.
achieve, we need to achieve. And then, of course, often people come to these retreats and they go, oh, I've taken a week off work, I have to make it meaningful, I have to make it meaningful, I have to put my full effort into this retreat. And then, of course, they get so tight. And then, of course, when things don't start happening, they get frustrated and tighter, and then so often we have to come to that point to let go. We have to sort of build up to, often, I mean, it'd be good if we could let it go from the beginning, but often it's that point we just go, okay, enough, finish, enough. And then that's when things start to actually go better, because we've given up this pushing attitude. Yeah, so very good.
I have a small problem.
Only a small one? Good.
Small one. I'm having a problem with the allergies
Allergies. Oh, because all the spring, the flowers and things.
and short of breath.
Sure.
And today, at noon, it started to get really severe.
Right.
I couldn't breathe, and especially my nose is condensed, so I can't even breathe through my nose, and breathing became very heavy. So I'm used to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my question is, do I just regard it as a distraction, another distraction that I need to just let it go and try to continue with the meditation, or is there, right now I took all my allergy
Medication.
but even now I feel that it's coming back, and tomorrow I'll be at the same place again.
Sure, sure.
But
I mean, yeah.
When something physical is really
Obstructing.
obstructive to
Yeah,
communication. What do you do?
Yeah, well, here I think we need to be sensible, you know, and sometimes people go to extremes, you know, and they don't seek medical attention or. Sure. So I just wanted to mention that first because sometimes people go to these sort of extremes. But I think one thing I forgot to mention, but now that you've mentioned your difficulty breathing through the nose, for these shamatha practices, apart from one where you're focusing here, you don't have to breathe through your nose. In fact, sometimes for this resting in awareness or observing the mind, even the instruction is you can breathe through your mouth. So that's one thing.
Then the breathing became very heavy. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe through the nose, so
yeah, then you can breathe through your mouth.
Then it's very heavy. My chest is like up and down. And
sure.
It's really very, very, very.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing that can be good then is to just go into the body and use that as your object, because otherwise, if you have some other object and you have this difficulty, often we develop an aversion to that, going, oh no, not that. And then, of course, we get agitated and so forth. So we can then switch to just noticing that, and then at least we won't have an aversion to it. And similarly, and this happened yesterday, of course, when we had that fire drill, the truck and everything, is that when you, again, you're doing this practice, whatever object you're using, let's say in one particular meditation session, there is some quite loud sound, repetitive, and it really keeps pulling us away, then just switch to focusing on that, because otherwise the danger is, oh, that sound, go away, and we have aversion, get agitated. So we need to be a little bit flexible. When these sorts of things come up, then we can shift. So in your case, we can shift to, well, one is to breathe through the mouth, and then secondly, just use those sensations in the chest area as your object. So you can do that. And then also, if it gets really difficult, then stop the meditation.
Not to label it as a distraction, just...
If you can, what I'm suggesting is that if this really pulls your attention a lot too much, no point in trying to, you're always going there. I mean, of course, if you can just let it go and go back to whatever your object is, fine. But if it's grabbing your attention constantly, then better to just shift to that as the object. So that was what I was trying to suggest.
Going backward a little bit, I'm not sure I understand the difference between observing the mind, which we did a few days ago, and awareness of the movement of the mind.
And
it's kind of the same.
And what do you think?
I think it's kind of the same because we're doing the same action.
Very good. It's the same. So, but, and I purposely
so what
did.
The awareness adds to this.
Yeah. What the awareness adds to it is that at our level, it helps avoid getting caught up, because we're consciously resting in that. Whereas when I introduced this practice 2 days ago, there was no anchor in awareness. It was just look at the thoughts, and then of course off we go. But now we have consciously noticing that stillness, and of course that will help to avoid, I think will help avoid getting swept away. And of course, essentially, I mean, it's the same practice really. It's just that we're here today consciously noticing that stillness of the awareness.
I had today two opposite experiences. In the morning I skipped breakfast and I went down to the creek.
To the creek, yeah.
And on the way there I heard a noise, and then suddenly there was a bull.
A wild pig.
Yeah, a big one.
Big one.
It was like closer to me than the distance is there. And it was spontaneous situation, and I became very silent, very And I didn't mind this title behind you, equalizing self and others. And me and the boar were staring one at the other like 2 minutes, I think. I was very calm. And I could feel through the time that, like the both of us, I could feel that both of us are afraid, and both of us has good intentions, and both of us had different plans this morning. After about 2 long minutes, he turned around, and as he went, I saw that actually there were two of them. And then I just kept on with my tray and went back.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was very, very clear.
Mm-hmm.
That's one experience.
Sure.
In the afternoon, you said twice in your instructions to pay attention to what emotions come. And the opposite happened to me. I became very stressed.
Stressed.
Anger is coming up, and I was filled up with resistance to the practice. In a minute, I couldn't stay sitting. I had to lay down. I was like so fed up. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I was so surprised, and I was wondering why you even suggested us to look for what emotion comes.
Because
why that? What?
Because often we miss them because they're so close to us. It's easier to observe thoughts, images, memories, generally, than it is to observe the more subjective things like emotions and reactions and irritations and stuff. Often that, because it's so close to us, we often miss that. So that's why I specifically said to have a look for that.
For me, it felt like once you bring that opportunity, and like taking advantage of it, but I don't know where that started.
It can come from many places, I think. Many places. Okay.
Regarding the allergies, I too suffer, and I brought all my medications and everything, and I didn't use it at all. That's calming.
Maybe he needs some of your medications.
So I was very surprised, and each day I wake up and I feel well. A little of symptoms, not more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And calming the mind is curing, meditating.
Very good. Very good.
It was a consideration for me to come to the retreat because I knew it's now
Spring,
the
yeah.
season with flowers and all.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think the power of the mind to heal the body is a lot of untapped potential there, I think. I think hopefully there'll be a lot of advancements in medicine in that area in the coming years, because I think a lot can be done.
If we're speaking diseases, it's kind of a tricky question, but I'm interested to know
Sure.
if it's connected. I have a disease that it's neurological disease, that my brain, like it's epilepsy, but I just stop
Functioning.
yeah. And after it happens, my mind goes like blank.
Blank, yeah.
I don't remember anything. And I was wondering if through meditation there's a way that I can be more aware before it happens or during. It's a very tricky question, but
Sure,
I want to know if there's
sure.
a way because it's it's
Yeah,
affecting.
yeah. Just on that point, just in general, one thing we shouldn't do, it's a bit extreme, is think that meditation can cure everything and not see the doctor and take medication. I think this is sort of irresponsible. Like sometimes, now with mindfulness being very popular and particularly in you know, dealing with things like depression and stuff, and people taking depression medication, and then they sort of like just completely stop it and start meditating. I mean, this is sort of not a healthy approach. We need to just sort of be, you know, do it in a controlled way. So I think we don't want to be irresponsible and stop any sort of medication thinking that meditation is going to do a better job. So, and particularly if you have if you're taking some medication for some medical condition, you know, I think it's important to consult your doctor if you're thinking about introducing some mindfulness or meditation and how that could affect and so forth, and how to manage those two together. So I think that's important. But I think certainly in terms of onset of any condition, I think the onset, to know when it's coming, I think certainly this sort of practice will help you become more aware of subtle changes in your body that normally now we don't really notice until there's some big change. So that for sure. I mean, whether or not this sort of practice can help you through the episode, that's debatable, because particularly if the brain is really shutting down or doing something very strange, then that's going to make it difficult to that. But I mean, it may be possible if we have a good level of mindfulness, it may help reduce the impact of some sort of episode. But again, certainly the knowing when it's about to happen, you'll be able to probably pick that up a little bit earlier, I think.
In the manner of just like in specific scenes that we're not aware, just like dreaming, if there's a way to just be aware through practice, even though it's
yeah, and I mean, I've heard of reports of people who have done some quite in-depth practice like this, and then having some sort of condition, and they said that it really helped them at that time. In that time, that mindfulness was quite helpful. But again, I think not to abandon medical advice and stuff, but maybe if you add this to what you're doing, it could improve things in a number of ways.
Two questions. First, I want to say that I'm in my mid-retreat crisis, and it's not over yet. It's not getting better yet. I found it very hard to concentrate today.
Sure.
And also yesterday, and I don't really get resting in awareness. I don't really get it.
That's okay. So tomorrow you can choose your own object, so it's okay.
Yeah. So that's one of my questions was, how important is it to get it now, or to get it in the future? Like, can I just focus? Like, I really like focusing on the mind. It's
Sure,
easier for
that's
me.
fine. So yeah, so the question is, do I have to really be able to do this awareness practice? No, the answer is no. I mean, the Shamatha, we pick the object that works for us, and we can just sort of stick with that. So, and I think you'll find that this awareness practice is quite subtle, and if we're observing the mind or the breath or whatever, and then we're starting to progress in the practice, and the mind is becoming more stable and clear, I think you might find later then if you shift to this, then you'll go, oh, that's it. So, but yeah, you can just leave it out for now. It's not a problem.
Okay, so I have two more small questions. One is, today you said about the open awareness.
Right.
And it seemed to me like, okay, when we were focusing on the mind, I was really working hard not to put the
Sure.
sensory things
Sure.
inside, and now we're putting them inside. And so I was saying, why not put them inside from the beginning? Just have them as a part of the meditation
Sure,
of the mind.
sure,
because
sure, sure.
They're there.
So the question is, why don't we just do open awareness as a shamatha practice? I think the reason is that open awareness, the field is too broad. That if we really want to develop this single-pointed attention, we need to narrow down a little bit. It's more effective to narrow down the field of what we're focusing on from everything just to the mental events. That's sort of the general description. So, of course, doing this practice as the meditation practice, open awareness, is very good, and it will also be very good then for daily life. but as an effective object to really progress along the shamatha path, it's probably going to be more effective to narrow that down a little bit in the meditation. But yeah, that's why I introduced it now as a practice that we can then bring into daily life, because that's what we'll be doing in daily life, is the open awareness.
Okay, another thing, I noticed that I was very agitated today, and I realized that although I do yoga also in my recess, and not only in those great lessons, I also do in the morning, and I do walks, and I do with recess. So even though I do a lot of body work, I felt that all this concentration was actually taking me a bit out of my body.
Which concentration?
Like the meditations, like I was feeling like a lot of energy up here,
Yeah.
and not.
Yeah, so again, I think this is really a sign of tension, of pushing too hard, tightness, or maybe frustration, just being really tight. So again, just relax, 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 relax. Just really, just let go. And particularly let go of wanting to achieve anything, let go of any expectations. And if we can let go of that, things will go a lot better. So just let go of striving for something, let go of wanting to get something, let go of any expectations, let go of it all and relax, and then whatever happens is okay. It's all okay.
I would like you to tell me what I'm doing. My meditation looks like I'm being, sitting, being,
Yeah.
in the being state, and then when there's a sound, I know there's a sound, and there's a thought, I know there's a thought.
Right.
Which type of meditation?
This is the one we just did in the last, the open awareness. So in that open awareness, whatever's appearing, we become aware of it. So there's a sound, we notice it. If we want to label it to avoid getting caught up, okay, but we don't have to. Just noticing the sound, noticing the thought, noticing the sensation, the memory. That's the practice we did in the last session before dinner. It's called open awareness.
But I'm not really focused on anything. I'm not focused on awareness. It's not.
No, but open awareness is you're focusing on the appearances to awareness. So what you described is exactly that. When a sound comes up, you notice that. When a thought comes, you notice that. When this comes, you notice that. This is the open awareness.
Is it resting in awareness or not?
The practice of resting in awareness is whatever comes up, we're not interested in it. It'll come up, but we're not paying any attention to it. The only thing in resting in awareness, the only thing we're interested in is awareness itself. Just knowing that we're aware. That's it.
So I don't know how to do this now.
I just want to continue because the first days, like you say, don't jump from one thing to another. But if I'm in open awareness, like I can suddenly feel my breathing, then sound, then seeing something, smelling, it goes from place to place.
Correct.
So why actually
So that
don't go from one place to
Correct. So that practice, as the question here was, is maybe not an effective practice for striving for shamatha. But it is an effective practice to improve our mindfulness, and it's an effective practice that we can really bring very well into daily life.
So it's not like focusing, like it's not enough focusing.
Yeah, that's right. We're not narrow enough, yeah.
You are teaching us all these systems one after the other, gradually.
The various objects?
Yes,
Yeah.
no, the various ways, in the nose, the whole body.
Yeah, sure.
What I'm asking, is this also means certain importance to each one of them?
Sorry, I didn't catch. Is what?
Does it put importance of each one of them more developed? Are we supposed to finish one, go to the other, or I can finish my life with an ulcer and everything is all right?
That's fine. So the question is, I've been teaching a number of objects, breath, mind, awareness in an order.
More sophisticated.
And so the question is, do we need to sort of follow this progression, or can I just stay with the breath for the rest of my life? You can do both. You can stay with your breath the whole time, or as Alan Wallace was suggesting, is that you know, the observing the mind and resting awareness quite challenging and more subtle, so, and maybe difficult to get into. So then we start